Welcome to the Youth Council Experience, Building Tomorrow's Leaders, hosted by the Community Positive Project. I'm Katherine Huckabee, and I encourage you to learn more about this project by connecting with us on Insta or LinkedIn and visiting us online at communitypositive.com. Earlier this year, I interviewed Kristen Petrie, a capital projects manager with the City of Mansfield in Texas. Mansfield is located about 30 miles from Dallas and 20 miles from Fort Worth, with a current population of around 80,000 people. During our conversation, she shared how she had been given the opportunity to help create the city's first youth council. After hearing about the work they've been doing, I invited them all to join me for a group interview. Today, I am honored to introduce you to Kristen and 5 members of the 2025 Mansfield Youth Council. Kristen?
Catherine, thank you so much. So with the bigger mission here of the Community Positive Project, I think that all of the members here really represent how important civic engagement is and getting involved. So it's my honor to get to introduce some of our standout members today. 2 of our freshman members, Joanna and Pornima, that really made a huge impact even in their first year in the program. Joanna is very passionate about pursuing medical science, specifically surgery, but also finding ways to incorporate public service into her future career. Pornima is very passionate about aerospace and either wants to study aerospace or neuroscience after graduating high school. Kate Castro, Jada McClure, and then Anika Sharma are some of our juniors. All 3 of those members actually served during our inaugural year last year. Kate is heavily interested in science and public policy. Her plan is to pursue physics in college. Jada plans to become a neurosurgeon and a medtech entrepreneur. And then Anika is very interested in aerospace engineering and international relations. So these are all students that do not set small goals for themselves, and they've definitely made our community better by setting some pretty big goals for our community. I do want to point out Dylan Lewis, our senior, who is going to be on the call today, is unfortunately busy. He is attending an orientation at the University of Texas at Austin for the McComb School of Business. So although he's not available to be on the call today, he does want to just let us know he's very interested in business administration, finance, and then plans to attend law school after graduating college.
So he has a little bit of an excuse for not being here. Is that what you're saying?
Just a little, yeah.
Just a little bit. So yeah. Okay, great. So we're going to start with Kate first. And Kate, if you want to go ahead and unmute yourself. So Kate, in your own words, how would you describe the Mansfield Youth Council and its purpose to someone who's never heard of it before?
Yeah, so the Mansfield Youth Council is comprised of about a dozen high school age students from across the city of Mansfield. We all have a very broad range of interests, but I would say that we're all very curious, and most of us have at least some interest in city government and services, whether or not we want to pursue a career in that. But our purpose is to pinpoint issues or subjects that impact the youth within our community and then to act on those matters. So we serve primarily as a voice for the young people within the city and drawing attention to what we feel is important for the youth. In the past 2 years, we have done so, especially with youth outreach initiatives to bring together young people across the community, and then also, most importantly, to foster a sense of community here in Mansfield.
Okay. Can you tell us just a little bit about the council's budget? Understanding, we've talked about this before, that many cities do not have budgets. And so tell us a little bit about that, and what opportunities do you feel have come across because you have funding that is dedicated to this group?
Yeah. So as you said, we're very fortunate as a youth council to have a dedicated budget to help fund our goals and our priorities. The Council specifically has a budget of over $30,000 for the year. Now, most of that helps to fund our upperclassmen trip to the National League of Cities Conference in Washington, D.C. Without that budget, there is really no way that we would be able to have such an amazing experience. And I'm sure we'll mention that more in just a moment. But $10,000 of that 30,000 is dedicated specifically to community events and outreach initiatives. In future years, though, this is subject and very likely to change just due to the nature of the organization. But programs like this are very flexible, and I found that youth councils specifically are very adaptable. We can really adjust to meet whatever budget we are given for the fiscal year. In my experience, though, on the Youth Council, especially in this past year, our members actually tend to lean a little bit more towards the frugal side. I would attribute this to our age. At this point in time, most of us teenagers are not going to be big spenders. So we've been able to put on some events with just a few $100s, depending on the scope. Expenses can vary very widely for different types of events. So I would say it's important for cities to keep that in mind. But it's very possible to organize some pretty amazing events on a more tighter budget. Even then, knowing that we have funding dedicated to our purposes makes everything 10 times easier. Throughout the year, we're able to put on a multitude of events, and all without really worrying about how we would have to be able to afford those experiences. So overall, the budget has made our initiatives more feasible, more effective, and it's definitely given us something to work with so that we can begin to address the matters that we're passionate about.
Okay. So you are definitely a future public servant because as Kristen, as she's smiling, all public servants know you have to do a lot with a little. And so being a good steward of taxpayer dollars is always a positive thing to be. Yeah. So congratulations for learning that early. So I have a couple of questions that I'm going to ask each one of you, and we're going to start with Kate for the first question. What really inspired you to become a part of the Youth Council?
Honestly, I was really just curious. The year that I joined was the first year of the program, so I had no idea what to expect or what we were really supposed to do. But I'd say that my philosophy is knowing how things work, which includes city government and services. And so when I decided to join the Mansfield Youth Council, I mostly just wanted to be involved and to understand what was happening around me. And since then, my purpose in being in the Mansfield Youth Council has evolved, and now I'm very interested in public policy and in civic engagement. But it still all goes back to the curiosity that started in the beginning.
Okay. Anika, same question. What inspires you to be a part of this council?
So for me, it was a lot like Kate said, was just curiosity and getting to do something that was out of my comfort zone. Because I know like I would never have I wouldn't have that opportunity like just floating around and just to go and see like how does local government go with everything that's going on in the city and to be able to make a like an impact in our community because I was born and raised here. So I wanted to give back to that same community and I wanted to have the voice in the decisions that affected us, like the teens in the city, because I know a lot of people don't think about youth as as like a majority of a city, but that does come to like by like figure out the decisions on what's going to eventually happen and how it's going to shape everything. And I was really like passionate about that for civic engagement, leadership, and wanting to just give back to turn the different ideas that we've thought about into actually actions.
Great. Just side question. Everyone, how many of you were born and raised in Mansfield? Raise your hand. So it's a good mixture then. Great. Jonah? Same question. What made you decide that you wanted to be a part of this council?
For me, I would say it's just a sense of wanting more because even though I wasn't born in Mansfield, I've lived here for almost 8 years and I was thinking, okay, what else is there that I can do? And I've been so interested in everything Mansfield. I think Mansfield's the greatest city to exist. Might just be because I lived here for a while, but yeah. And that interest kind of built up when I saw, oh, look, a youth council, I should join. And so that was how it started.
Good. Jonah, how did you find out about the youth council?
So the first time I heard about it, my friend told me, and I was like, oh yeah, whatever. But then after attending the university and I learned more about it, I was like, this is amazing. And so I joined.
Good. Jada, same question. What made you decide to be a part of the youth council?
So I was actually inspired by a public service leader that goes by the name of Westmore. He was the first Black governor of Maryland. And so my freshman year, I ended up reading his book, and it talked about how he got involved in local government at an early age Now he was working hand in hand with the current mayor at the time of Baltimore as a student. And I thought that was super cool that he was doing so much to help his community out at such a young age.
Yeah.
And I just really got inspired by that. And his journey showed me that young people can make a difference, even when they step up and get involved, even when they're told no and knocked down a lot of times. And so once I heard about the opportunity, I was like, I need to join this. It's such an amazing opportunity, and it's really paid off.
Right. Good. Um, and then we've got Purnima.
Yeah, so like Joanna, I learned about youth council through University, and at first I wasn't really sure if it was something I wanted to join, but I've always been into volunteering and civic engagement. So I gave it a try, and um, it's just a wonderful opportunity. I just love being in it, and it taught me a lot about how the city is governed and what goes into actually governing the city. And so having to be a part of that is just really great.
So for people who've never heard of anything called University, can you explain what that is?
So Mini-versity is like an introduction to youth council. It's a 3-day summer program, and it basically gives youth an introduction to the city of Mansfield, to all the opportunities that it provides, and how you can be more engaged in the community.
Okay, great. Our next question is again for everyone, and we're going to start with Kate again. So, looking back at everything that you've done so far with the council, is there an experience that stands out as being the most meaningful or something that you feel has been the most impactful for you personally?
Yes. So I've been lucky enough for the past 2 years to join the Youth Council on our trip to Washington, D.C. And while at the National League of Cities, we set aside time in our visit to meet with Congressman Jake Ellzey, who serves the 6th Congressional District of Texas. And we were able to meet with him personally, ask him questions. To me, that experience was the most impactful because at our age, there really isn't any other or very few opportunities to be able to have a conversation with somebody like him. I can't tell you any of my who are outside of the youth council who have ever had a conversation with somebody on Capitol Hill. And I know that I loved being able to ask my pressing questions about the nation and the world that just can't be answered through a Google search. And I think the conversations that took place in his office are very rare to have, but it made me feel very involved and gave me some powerful insight into the government and the society itself.
Love that. Anika?
So just like Kate had also said, for the last 2 years, I've gotten the pleasure of going with our city council to the NLC conference. And for me, it was seeing like all the different like keynote speakers that have come. Like this year we had our vice president come and speak. And last year it was our current president. And just being able to see them like have that platform and how much they care about like how everything comes together and getting to like you didn't get to talk to them one-on-one, but you felt like your voice was heard there. So just getting to do that as well as going to Capitol Hill and meeting Jake Ellzey and getting to like talk to him like one-on-one, I feel like that's an experience not a lot of people can have. And I feel like that was a very impactful and like meaningful thing to me to be able to sit there and ask him questions, as well as because we had like some things in common, get to talk about that.
Good. Jonah?
For me, I'd say my experience is a little different.
Okay.
I would say, just turning up to an event and seeing how like the turnout was. That's something that really stood out to me because you go all this planning and you make everything perfect, and then you just go there and you see the result of all your planning. And so
Yeah.
very, very impactful.
You are speaking my love language because anything having to do with events, it's so much work that goes into it, and you hope you're going to get all the right people to show up. So it's kind of fun when you finally get to that day. You see everything that's coming across. Jada.
One of the most impactful experiences for me was participating in the planning and execution of our MySpace event, which took place the very first term of the Mansfield Youth Council. It was a teen-centered event hosted at the Lot downtown Mansfield. And this event was entirely designed and led by the NYC members, and it offered a platform for our peers to engage in activities. And what made this event particularly meaningful was the opportunity to create a space tailored to the interests and preferences of Mansfield's youth. ensuring that they had a place to connect and express themselves. The success of the MySpace event not only showcased our ability to collaborate and lead, but also reinforced the importance of youth-driven initiatives.
Can you tell me two things that happened during the MySpace event that were specifically tailored to the youth?
Yes, so we actually had karaoke and a lot of games, which was super fun. We got to see people come out of their comfort zones and really engage with everyone that was there.
Yeah.
And we also had a mural painting. I think you can see pictures of it on our Instagram page.
Okay.
And that was really beautiful because the community got to come together and create something that would stay there for a while.
So cool. Did you do the murals where you had to paint out, you did the grids and everyone had a square that they had to do? Or
Um,
was it a free draw?
so we actually had a professional come out and sort of tell people what to do and what to make and sort of keep it organized and
Yeah,
nice and clean.
that's fun. Purnima.
Yeah, so mine's a little more simple, but when I look back at just our youth council regular meetings, I think it's really crazy to see how we all grew from our first meeting to now. Our first meeting, we were all just kind of feeling each other out, trying to see what each one of us was good at. And now we've gotten to a point where we can easily bounce off ideas and make a good plan in a little amount of time. And so it just gave everyone a role without us having fully official roles and allowing us to express ourselves.
Okay. By show of hands, how many of you actually knew everybody else that's in this group before you started with the council? Anybody? That's huge. That's one of the best parts, I think, about being a part of a group like this. Anika, can you explain what the youth master plan is? Y'all call it the Project Hometown, is to people who've never heard of it. And then can you tell me what type of changes that you feel that you guys are really hoping to bring to the city of Mansfield through this project?
Yeah, for sure. So I'm like on one of like our subcommittees to be writing the youth master plan.
Okay.
And so basically our plan is to be creating a third space. For the people that don't know what a third space is, it is basically a place that is other than your home or your place of studying and something like that you can just casually go to and like work there or something like that. So we it's basically a strategic initiative that is aimed at enhancing the quality of the life and like going out and making the youth better kind of and getting them to engage in the city more. And it is designed by the youth for the youth with the goal of making it more like our city being more responsive to the needs and the voices of our younger residents because we know like that's one of our bigger populations here. And through the initiative, we are hoping to foster a stronger community engagement, promote youth leadership, and create inclusive spaces where like the teens are feeling like heard and that they can do what they really want to do and they are valued and connected to each other. Because as we saw, like nobody knew every single person before we became the youth council. So we really want to help foster that. And one of our primary objectives that we've come up with is to advocate for obviously our third spaces, which is going to be a safe, welcoming environment that is not a school or a home, but it serves as a place that the youth can gather, collaborate, and unwind. Because I know it's like very stressful, not just for teens, but for like a little bit of the middle schoolers if they're taking like high school classes. So that's what we really want to do.
Okay, great. So one of the things that we talked about originally was how those organizations that do have youth councils structure them completely different. So talk a little bit, Anika, about how the youth council is structured, the leadership roles, or if you have the working subcommittees, and then what type of goals are guiding your work.
Okay, so I'm going to start off with how our council is structured. So we operate as kind of a subcommittee uh thing with each committee being led by like kind of a specific person-ish.
Okay.
It's like, for example, we had two events this year. We had our volleyball event in the spring session, and we had our other event, which was our study nights and our craft nights. So for those two events, we had different committee heads that were kind of like overlooking it, but everyone was working within it. as well as like just being able to work together. So they come at one of our meetings, we'll just have a breakout session and we'll be talking about our committee stuff. And then we come back later in the meeting or the next meeting and we talk about what initiatives are being put in place. So right now, we're not really working on our master plan committee, but I do like kind of lead that. Um, Additional, we have other some um things for the study nights. We don't have presidents or vice presidents or any like leadership opportunities because we want everyone to feel as one together. Like each one is their own person and nobody's above each other so
Okay.
that we can emphasize the collaborative leadership and shared responsibility with each other. So not one person is doing more than others. Our guiding mission basically is about the youth and pursuing the goals that are impacting the well-being of the teens in Mansfield. And yeah.
Okay, great. Jonah, um, tell me how you feel the council creates real opportunities for youth to be heard by city leaders.
So just like Anika mentioned not that long ago, the youth council, we do everything for the youth by youths, if that makes sense.
Mhm.
And so we have lots of connections as youths to people like our friends or just people around us. And so when we hear what they want, we can make that happen through our influence. And so it just kind of gives them a way to express themselves through us.
Okay. Do you have an example of something where you've done that, where a friend or someone has said something to you that you felt needed to go to city leadership?
I think in the beginning, my friends were like, "Oh yeah, we should go hang out more," but then no one could think of a place to go.
Mhm.
So then we'd have to go far away, go to Arlington, go to Grand Prairie. And it just kind of made me think like, oh, well, since we live in Mansfield, we should be able to do something like this in Mansfield. And so
Yeah.
stuff like that, generally.
So that's how you came up with that program then.
Yeah, basically.
Okay. When you have, when we're looking at opportunities to talk with city leaders, do you talk to Kristen first or do you talk to your city manager? Do you have meetings with them or is it all through your staff liaison?
It's more or less like a process. Although we haven't had many meetings with them, even
Mhm.
though those that did go to DC were able to have a dinner with them.
Okay.
Um, for the most part, we don't meet with them directly, but we also don't always do it through someone.
Okay.
So it's just like if the need arises, then we could present to them in council
Okay.
and just have those kinds of conversations. And in the future, we're planning on having more informal meetings with them so that we can all get to know each other and stuff like that.
Right. Great. So you're definitely more autonomous at this point, but looking to grow as in the future.
Yes.
Can you give me an example of when you feel, well, you've already kind of told me about the input that was appointed by city leaders. Um, Knowing that that has helped you now to create an entire program that's going to benefit the youth throughout the city, what does that say to you about the partnership that you've been able to create with city leadership?
Yeah, I think they're very willing to like listen to us and implement everything that we're doing
Mhm.
because I mean these are all very new ideas, third spaces and whatnot,
Yeah.
most, mainly for young people. And so yeah, they're very open to all our ideas and looking forward to everything that we plan.
Yeah. Okay. Jada, tell me what type of positive impacts has been taken to the Mansfield's community city leaders directly by the council.
So the Mansfield Youth Council has helped bridge the gap between city leadership and the youth population by showing that young people care deeply about their community and have valuable ideas to contribute. I would say one of the most impactful things that we've done was participate in the National League of Cities Youth Track, where we learned about how cities across the country are empowering young voices. And so we brought those ideas and lessons back to Mansfield and we shared them with our leaders, helping shape more inclusive and forward-thinking youth programs.
Mhm.
Locally, we've organized art nights and study nights and volleyball game days. events designed to give students spaces to connect, unwind, and engage outside of academics. I would say that these programs really foster a community among youth while demonstrating how city resources can be used in ways that are relevant to our generation. Personally, I would say that I contribute regularly to the Mansfield Historical Preservation Committee, where I bring a youth perspective to conversations and stories and landmarks that should be highlighted. And I think it's really important that our city includes history for everyone, including young people, so that future generations can have a sense of ownership and pride in where they come from. And that kind of intergenerational collaboration is exactly what the Mansfield Youth Council stands for.
Yeah. So now that you've worked with city and some of your elected officials, what has surprised you the most about what they do in their day-to-day work or about them personally?
I would say what surprised me the most is how accessible and genuinely committed many of them are, which sounds very ironic because that's their job to be with the community. But a lot of times we get caught up in looking at news and it's not the most prettiest things that we see oftentimes.
Yeah.
I think that I used to think that government was mostly formal and bureaucratic, but after working with them, I've realized how much heart goes into their roles and that they truly care about Mansfield and are constantly balancing complex issues while trying to make thoughtful long-term decisions. And I also didn't expect how much collaboration and behind the scenes coordination it takes to bring a single event to life. So for example, I know that we have a lot of construction plans in Mansfield that a lot of people are working forward to, but we just see the aftermath of what it's going to be, but not behind the scenes. And it's given me a new level of respect for public service, and it's made me more confident that young people can really make a difference when we're at the table.
Yeah. Kate, when you're looking ahead for next year, what kind of challenges or issues would you like to see future youth councils address?
Yeah, so I'm still blessed to have one more year on this youth council, but especially in future years, I'd say 5, 10 years down the line, I'm really curious to see how the Mansfield Youth Council is going to adapt to such a rapidly growing population here in Mansfield, without trying to sacrifice that small town feel that is so central to the Mansfield identity. I think we can all agree that Mansfield is no longer a small town, but the city's just going to keep on growing. And so we are so focused on building community ties and bonds that I know it's going to be difficult to have that in a large city, especially without the proper infrastructure and initiatives in place to foster it. So I'd like to see some innovation and efforts from the Youth Council to help tackle that.
Okay. And for Nima, why do you believe it's valuable for youth across all different cities to get involved in their local government?
Yeah, so your local government is so important, especially as a student. You might feel like you don't get to engage a lot with your local government because you're so young. But I think getting involved early just allows you to explore your options for the future. So whether that's through internships or volunteering, it lets your local government know that there's youth who want to be involved. So it lets them know that they might want to put on a program like Youth Council and that the youth community wants to be involved with the local government. Just the vast difference in necessity between the youth and the adults of our community is something that just can be best addressed when you're engaging with the youth. So like our goal for this year was enacting more third spaces, which just allowed our youth to come together more. And that allowed our local government to take the initiative to be like, okay, we see what they want, we hear you. How can we work towards that?
Do you feel like, as a group, that that the city of Mansfield fully understood how much the youth wanted to be involved in different processes and learning more about city government? Do you
I
think it's been a surprise to them to how much you guys have wanted to be involved?
I think they were really willing with us. Just with the Miniversity program itself, it being a 3-day program and so long, they take us on tours of the city, including the fire station. So I think they were really, really willing to work with us and want to see what we're coming up with and doing.
Yeah, great. Kate, for cities that are starting or considering starting their own youth council, what would you say is the most compelling reason that they should take that step?
I believe that if a city wants its young residents to stay, return, or at very least reminisce their hometown, I say they should start a youth council. The nature of the world is that at different age groups, we are going to have different perspectives. And if the youth perspective isn't being recognized or engaged with in some way, it's going to be very hard to build a community that youth want to go back to, especially because healthy cities, they just respond to the needs and the wants of its entire population. And to add on to that, youth councils really allow the youth to tap into another sense of leadership and initiative that it's really hard to find elsewhere. In the youth council, no one's forcing you to do anything. It's not school where you have assignments, or it's not a club that you feel obligated to join. You're there because you want to be there and you want to be involved. And I think that leads us to have more initiative and more purpose. And that will just pour into the community as well. So I think the most important reason for a city government to form a youth council is really just going to be for the overall well-being of the community and to allow it to thrive.
Okay. So for all of you, this is a question that I'm going to throw in there. Do you see yourself, I saw your bios and what you think you're going to be doing in college and possible careers, but do any of you see yourself working a few years or interning within a city?
I think somewhere down the line, I could see that happening. I'm not sure where, but I am interested enough that I would consider it now. And I don't think that I'd have that idea if I hadn't joined the youth council.
That was my next question. You probably didn't have any idea about all the opportunities that existed.
Yeah, I'd have no clue.
Yeah. Anybody else interested in maybe pursuing a career in local government?
Yes, I possibly could because as I learned like more throughout like every year like I know more now than I did last year coming into the youth council and
Yeah.
getting to see the different layers of like how local government works and stuff. I feel like I could totally do that and give back to like a community and like let it thrive.
Yeah. And would you have known about any of these opportunities had it not been for the youth council?
No, I would not have.
Anybody else?
I think I'd agree with Anika and Kay. I would not have known about this if not for the youth council. And I really love being able to give back to my city and volunteering where I can. So I think it's a really great opportunity.
Okay, great. Joan or Jada, do you have anything else that you want to add to that?
I don't think I'd go into a career like that, but I could see myself doing it just like as volunteering or just service.
So maybe serving on a board or council,
Maybe,
commission, maybe you want to be the
maybe.
mayor. I don't know.
I agree with Joanna because I think both of us are interested in the medical field, so it's a lot to have to like do that and then also this full time. But I think that I would really want to keep the connections that I've been making. And I still do want to give back to my community, just in a different way.
Yeah. So Kristen's been with the city of Mansfield how long?
It's about to be 3 years.
Okay, guys. Kristen, are you still learning things three years in that you didn't know anything about, or departments that didn't exist, or positions?
Absolutely. I think that's a really cool phase in public administration that our industry is in right now.
Yeah.
It seems to be that wherever you look, you've got mentors who are willing to teach you.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, there's never going to be a day where you're an expert on everything. And I say that full transparency, I learn from this group all the time. So there's no end to just trying to make whatever programs you're running better or engaging with the community in more productive or important ways. There's really no cap to what you can learn and how you can be better there.
Right. So from the city's viewpoint, what benefits do you feel like the youth council brings to decision-making processes and really the city's ability to serve our younger community members?
How much time do we have left? Because
I know.
several hours talking about this, but let's start kind of with the immediate and then go like longer term. Immediate, needs for the city, Mansfield was in a really unique spot last year where we were looking at adopting several long-term guiding documents, our economic development incentive policy, our future land use plan. And those are both documents that will have a radical impact on what the city looks like in 10 years. And the fact that everybody kind of looked around the table at who was contributing to those plans and realized, hey, we don't have any young voices that are going to be a part of this conversation, but they're going to be the ones who own this city, who run this city in 10 years. Should we not have them at the table? That really snowballed into, no, we don't want to just have a connection with our young people for these long-term documents. We want to have a connection with young people and them have input all the time. So not only has it really impacted our, documents like those that I was just referring to, but it's also had a huge change in our city's philosophy on engaging with young people. Even myself, I started out on a youth council when I was in high school, and even in the time since I've joined, I've just been so impressed by how much young people desperately care about their community, not themselves, not their own personal interests, but their friends, their families, the other young voices who maybe are too shy to get involved or don't have the time to be involved. They truly have servants' hearts. So I'd say from a short-term impact, that's probably the most crucial thing out the gate. Now, from a long-term perspective, you talked about, how a youth council is going to impact how we serve our residents, our young residents. But from a long-term perspective, and this is where having young people involved is so crucial. The young people that are on our youth council right now aren't just making decisions for themselves. They're making decisions for the residents that will be here 10 years later. And those aren't necessarily young people. Those are members of our community at all different walks and points in their life. They're new and young professionals. They are new families. They are retired citizens who are looking for a place to kind of settle their roots down and enjoy the community that they're in. I've been really impressed that, that's a pretty hefty responsibility, but every single member in our group takes that responsibility very seriously, and they make decisions with that in mind all the time. So yes, I think that from the city's viewpoint, they've been instrumental in not just helping us achieve what our plans look like for the next 10 years, but they're also setting a tone and a philosophy for the city that has changed how we navigate future issues and topics for the rest of the city's history. So
from a staff perspective, what do you feel like is the most important resource or tool that you have to have in a city to make a youth council work?
That's a great question. And honestly, 6 months ago, I probably would have told you something different just out of naivety. Now I realize, especially, so we just concluded this term of the youth council, and at the conclusion of each term, we have a reflection period where we ask the members to hash out, hey, what went well, what could be improved on, like how can we make this group better? The most crucial resource and champion that you're going to have for your youth council for it to be successful are members who genuinely care about their community. If you have members who are just showing up to add it to their resume or, have kind of one foot in, one foot out, they just won't be as invested or as engaged. And when they give that feedback to staff, and that's at the end of the day, as a staff member, that's what we want. We want this program to be as successful as possible. And that means asking the people who are directly involved in this program. And if they care about it, if they're engaged, we're very lucky that we have very engaged members. The fate for this program is that it's just going to continue to get better and better each year.
Well, I want you guys to understand that that whether you choose to work in local government or not, one of the things that people that have been doing that work notices that we have things like working groups or task force, committees and boards and commissions. And sometimes they do exactly what Kristen is talking about, where they are sometimes going through the motions from the perspective of the community. And so for her to point out how important it is and how impactful it has been to have you around the table to really share that the insights that you have to improve Mansfield, that's a bigger statement than what you can possibly realize, because it's real easy to just check a box. It's a lot harder to be invested and really want to make your communities better. So you make me feel very hopeful about the next generation, and I can see several of you in very strong leadership roles, whether it's local government or an elected official that you haven't thought about yet. But I really appreciate all of your time and your energy over the last few years with the council, but also taking time to share this information with everyone. Is there any last minute words of wisdom that anybody would like to share? You're like, we're done. And thank you to everyone for joining us today. If you want to learn more about the City of Mansfield, you can check out their social media pages on Insta at City of Mansfield, Texas. Their website is mansfieldtexas.gov, and on LinkedIn, they are at City of Mansfield, Texas. And then we love to have you connect with us at Community Positive, and our Insta is the Community